Hello guys, today I'm happy to bring up to the podium Tom Countryman, who is our Acting Undersecretary for Arms Control and International Security. Tom's going to talk about the newly published report, To Walk the Earth in Safety, which I think you guys have in front of you. That's an annual State Department report that documents the United States commitment to conventional weapons destruction. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the Acting Undersecretary. We'll take a couple questions. As before, I'll stand over here to the side, moderate, please identify who you are, who you're with, and then I think we got time for a couple after you're done. We'll have a brief opening statement.
Thanks very much, John, and good afternoon to you. I am very proud today to announce the release of the 15th edition of the publication To Walk the Earth in Safety. This is a powerful report. It chronicles the progress that we have made in reducing the global threat posed by landmines and other conventional weapons. In my own travels in the Balkans, in Afghanistan, in Angola, I've personally seen how these programs are saving lives and helping countries recover from conflict. And it is all due to the generosity of the American people. Since 1993, the United States has invested more than $2.6 billion to clear or destroy landmines, unexploded ordnance, and other dangerous conventional weapons and munitions. We've done this in more than 95 countries. We are helping post-conflict communities to recover and to rebuild. Now, this publication, To Walk the Earth in Safety, not only gives very detailed information about our programs, it makes clear with real cases the difference that these programs are making in the lives of countless people. We work together with the host nations, with other countries that donate generously, with the non-governmental organizations and contractors who actually perform the work of clearing landmines. And in this way, we have turned one-time battlegrounds into land for agriculture, for homes, for vital infrastructure. Colombia, for example, remains one of the most landmine-affected countries in the world. Joint demining operations conducted by the Colombian government and by the FARC have helped to build trust between former enemies and also facilitated community access to land that was once marked by explosive hazards. Now, clearing landmines is a difficult and a dangerous process, and it goes slowly. But the Colombian people know that the United States, Norway, and other members of the Global Demining Initiative for Colombia will keep with it. In Angola, we've invested more than $124 million since 1995 to dispose of landmines, unexploded ordnance, and aging Cold War-era weapons and munitions. This assistance, primarily implemented through non-governmental organizations, has drastically reduced civilian casualties and has given more Angolans the chance to go home and to live there safely. Still, there's a lot of work to be done. When President Obama was in Southeast Asia this fall, he noted that Laos was per person the most heavily bombed country in history, and he promised to double our spending for unexploded ordnance clearance, committing $90 million over the next 3 years. And this support makes a difference all over the world. These programs produce tangible results, and they support regional stability. In the Sahel, in Bosnia-Herzegovina and Albania, they help to play a key role in shaping and sustaining a more peaceful and democratic world. Our efforts in the Kyrgyz Republic to clear unstable old ammunition, to provide medical rehabilitation to landmine survivors in Zimbabwe, these help pave the way for broader humanitarian assistance and stabilization efforts. We support these programs not just because it's the right thing to do from a humanitarian perspective. We support them because they are in the best interests of the United States. They are critical to advancing security and stability, to helping war-torn countries break the cycle of violence, to help them to recover, to thrive. They build tremendous goodwill for the United States, and they enable us to work with countries where in the past our relations were limited. When people can walk the earth in safety, they can rebuild their communities, they can tend their fields, they can safely transport goods to market. Without these programs, development and reconstruction stalls, and the anger and resentment that contributed to the violence in the first place has a grounds to recover. Our efforts, the U.S. government and all of our partners, are crucial to help building a more safe, secure, and prosperous world. And that's why the conventional weapons destruction effort of the State Department have tremendous support across multiple administrations and from both sides of the aisle in Congress. So I want to applaud not just our own efforts, but all the countries that donate, all the organizations that put people in the field, everybody who has helped to make it possible for the inhabitants of the earth to walk safely and run safely and play and work safely. So I'm happy to take a few questions, and I also want to introduce a friend I'm very proud of. Stan Brown is the director of the Office of Weapons Removal and Abatement, and both today and in the future, a great point of contact for you for further details. So thanks for this opportunity, John.
Questions, Matt?
Yeah, just very briefly, two. One is, do you know, and I haven't had a chance to look through this whole report yet, seen some of it, but when in your programs that are going around clearing mines and UXO, what the percentage is that you find that are American made or supplied? Is that a statistic or a figure that you guys know?
That's not currently a statistic that we track specifically. It varies country to country, and we find that a lot of them are foreign made.
Right. Okay. And then secondly, on the Ottawa Convention, and where does the administration stand on that?
For those of you who don't know, the Ottawa Convention bans the production and use of anti-personnel landmines. The United States is not a party to this convention. However, we have previously announced that we will observe the key requirements of the Ottawa Convention with the exception of on the Korean Peninsula. We're not producing anti-personnel landmines. We're not selling them. We're destroying those that are not needed and exploring every alternative in collaboration with our ally, the Republic of Korea, in order to find alternatives for the defense of the Republic
So I guess
of Korea.
my question is then how is that quest for alternatives going? And do you know how many anti-personnel landmines there are on the Korean border?
I'll turn again to the experts.
The opportunity to look for material and operational solutions that rest over in DoD. They're working very diligently to come up with solutions that would put us in a position to accede in the future. I don't have the exact figure for what is needed specifically for the protection of the Republic of Korea, but we can follow up and get that for you.
Okay, thank you.
Just a quick follow-up on the 1997 Mine Ban Treaty. A few years ago, President Obama made a policy pledge to join that treaty before the end of his term. How likely are we going to see that happen? And also, could you please update us? I know the next meeting is going to happen the end of November in Chile. Is there any delegation from the United States going to be attending as an observer, and what would be the goal?
All right. Well, I'll make 2 points, and then Stan will correct me. First, what President Obama said is that we want to create the conditions under which it's possible to accede to the treaty. Specific security conditions on the Korean Peninsula meant that although we embraced all parts of the treaty for the great majority of the world, we were not in a position to accede. And as Stan Brown just explained, we are working on getting to a point where we could, in good conscience, fulfill all of the convention's requirements. We have participated actively throughout the Obama administration in all of the review meetings under the Ottawa Convention, and I'm sure we'll do the same in Chile this month.
What is the level to attend the next meeting in the end of November in Chile?
Just say that one more time.
Who? How high a level?
We'll send 2 representatives down as observers. The head of delegation will be Mr. Steve Costner. He'll be the deputy director for our office in Workers' Removal and Abatement.
What is the goal? I mean, will you be recommended to the goal of 2025 of global clearance of global demand?
We support the efforts ongoing much of the international community with the goal of 2025 that was stated in Maputo. We have been attending as an observer nation for the Ottawa Convention meetings since Cartagena, I think in 2009. We'll continue to do so. The goal is, again, to further the basic principles of the Ottawa Convention, even though we're not in a position to accede at this time. We work very closely with the international community, other nations on reducing the threat that landmines pose to civilians, and we'll continue to do that, and we'll stay engaged in that discussion.
Any other questions?
And I just add, regardless of whether or not we can meet that 2025 goal, I'm very proud, and I think the American people ought to be proud, that no other nation has contributed more to the clearing of landmine and other explosives than the United States.
Thanks, Tom. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all very much.
On that, and no one is I don't think anyone would dispute that or say that it's a bad thing, but, you know, what you mentioned in your opening comments that the president, when he was in Laos, noted that it was the most bombed country per person in history. It was the United States that did that bombing, was it not? So, I mean, my question is aimed at, isn't it a moral, isn't there a moral argument that you should be the leading contributor to efforts to clear mines in UXO?
There is a moral argument that as Americans, we have to do the same thing that we have done in so many other areas, whether the issue is disease or poverty or access to water. We have a humanitarian impulse in the United States, and we have worked on landmines without reference to whether those landmines were emplaced by, or bombs were emplaced by the United States or the Soviet Union or a U.S. ally or a Soviet ally or in a local conflict. And that's the right way to approach it. We don't do it out of guilt. We do this because it's the right thing to do, because it's saving lives today.
Thank you.
Yeah, please.
One further comment there. What we see is great support from both sides of the aisle in Congress. And one of the things that they put into the manager's statements is that we will orient our funding to cleaning up U.S. cause UXO first.
Okay.
Obviously, part of that is legacy issues in Southeast Asia, and we're working very diligently there. But the majority of the unexploded ordnance and landmines around the world are not U.S. oriented or not U.S. built. So we can, as Undersecretary Countryman just said, we work very diligently around the world to clean up unexploded ordnance, landmines, help secure ammunition and weapons so that we can protect civil society.
Right. Do you have any rough idea, and I realize you couldn't say how much was American-made or produced or supplied, but do you have any, and you said a lot of it is foreign, but do you have any idea, is it half and half, is it 60-40, is there any way to tell?
I don't want to speculate to say because it varies so greatly depending on where you're working.
Follow-up, is there one country that's particularly more responsible than other countries for the landmines in the world?
I don't have an answer for that. I mean, it varies by different producers or different producers to landmines, but I don't have that off the top of my head.
It wouldn't be like the Soviet bloc or anything, would it?
I cannot answer that.
I'm not sure what you mean by responsible.
Well, they made them and they
Having
laid them.
produced it.
Produced them.
That's a question we may be able to research.
I'd be interested in the answer.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you,
you, John.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thanks very much. Okay, guys, just a quick update on the Secretary's travel, I think you saw that, you know that he's in Lima today, leading the State Department's delegation to the Asian Pacific Economic Cooperation Ministerial Meeting. He will have, or by this time has had, a number of meetings today, including bilateral discussions with the Japanese Foreign Minister, the Philippine Foreign Minister, the Taiwanese APEC Special Envoy, the Peruvian Foreign Minister, the Russian Foreign Minister, and the Canadian Foreign Minister. Some of those haven't happened yet, some have. I think the team on the ground will be putting out readouts. I think they've already put out a readout of the meeting with Foreign Minister Kishida, so you'll see those rolling along. That's my understanding. They'll do one for each one, so you'll see those from Mark out on the road. With that, Matt,
Right. Let me start with my daily
I
transition.
have nothing to update you on.
Wow, that was fast.
Yep.
There has been some reporting out there that there is, with people expressing concern that the president-elect and his staff or vice president-elect and their staffs are having conversations by phone with foreign leaders that are not on secure lines. I'm just wondering, one, does the State Department have any idea what kind of phone lines are being used? And two, does it care? Is this an issue for security or otherwise? Is it an issue?
Well, the answer to the first question is no, we don't have visibility into the method of transmission here in terms of how the calls are being set up and facilitated. I don't think it, I mean, and you know this, Matt, that it is possible and it's fairly routine, not in every case, but in many cases for the phone calls even that we have with the foreign counterparts are sometimes done over unclassified telephone systems. Not everyone, but I would say a majority of them are done that way. And then obviously we would leave it to the transition team to speak
Right.
to the degree to which what they were discussing and the degree to which any of that might have been sensitive.
So anyway, so what you're saying is basically there isn't a concern from the State Department about how these calls are being done.
It's not for us to comment on that right now.
Well, I mean, it might be if it was a
Again,
problem. And I'm
we
just
don't
trying
have
to figure out-
visibility into the
I
content,
understand
and we
that,
don't
but
have visibility into who's being, who
Right.
they're calling and
But-
when, and so, I mean, obviously,
you
one would
have-
have to assume
Right.
that the transition, that the
Right.
transition team understands the limits of unclassified discussions,
Right.
but that's really for them to speak.
I understand that, but I want to know from this current administration's perspective, is this a potential problem, or is it not something, as you said, that is it not something that you're at all concerned about? Because, as you said, a vast majority or a majority of phone
Yeah, I
calls
mean,
right now take place over unsecure lines.
It depends on what's being conveyed over an unclassified network. I mean, it's hard for me to say, is it a problem or not, when we don't have visibility into what's being
Well,
discussed.
I'm not asking if it's a problem. Is
Well,
there a concern that it might be a problem? That's the
Again,
question.
We're going to rely on the judgment of the
Okay.
president-elect's team to determine the
All right, so
appropriate
I just
nature
want to
of their
make sure
conversations.
then, I got this straight, that it is not a particular concern of the State Department how the president-elect and the vice president-elect speak with foreign leaders.
It is up to the president-elect
Okay.
and his team to
And
determine
then
the nature of
last
their
one,
conversations with
and
foreign
sorry,
leaders.
Leslie, thank you. And then the last one on this. So the Secretary met with Foreign Minister of Japan in Peru. The readout that you guys sent out didn't say anything about the Prime Minister of Japan meeting with the President-elect today. I'm wondering, did they talk about that at all? Has the government of Japan been in touch with the administration about Prime Minister Abe's visit today?
Well, two different questions. I'm not aware of any contact that we've had with the government of Japan in any kind of formal way about the visit, and I would just point you to the readout. I obviously wasn't there when the visit happened, so Mark gave a readout that I thought was pretty complete, and I simply won't go beyond that.
Okay, so so we don't know
Well, I mean, it's just, I would have to just point you to the readout.
Well, yeah, I
I
know,
wouldn't
but
go into any
can we
more
find
detail
out
than it's, in-
if-
I
If
just,
it was, I mean, maybe it wasn't discussed, I don't know, and that's why it wasn't in the
I can
email.
ask the question, but I
Okay.
don't think that we're gonna go beyond the readout.
Okay.
Hang on, Leslie first. then.
Were any briefing notes being shared with them at all on Japan or any of these countries?
I am not.
And a follow-up on the Japanese one. And you say you haven't had any contact with the Japanese regarding any issues.
I'm not
that
aware
they-
of any contact
But
with
that
the
doesn't mean it
Japanese
hasn't
government
happened.
with respect to this meeting
But
today.
that doesn't mean it hasn't happened, right?
I have no knowledge of any contact between the State Department and the government of Japan when it comes to this meeting. Yeah.
Did you prepare briefing material for the Trump team or for the Japan meeting, for the Prime Minister?
As I said yesterday, there was no briefing materials shared with the President-elect's team.
That
Yeah.
hasn't changed.
Go ahead, Nike.
Yeah, on the Abe and Trump meeting, do you have any expectation of the meeting? I know it's defined as a private meeting. Do you have any expectation?
That's really for the transition team, for the President-elect's team to speak to.
Do you expect that the like recommitment to a stronger alliance?
Nike, you're asking the wrong guy. That's really for the President-elect to speak to. The conversations he's having, the meetings he's having, that is for him and his team to describe, to characterize, to comment on, not for us.
Do you have any kind of information on when was the longest transitional contact period that we've had in recent presidential history?
longest
longest period without contact between the transition.
I don't
team and
have
some-
that kind of history.
Okay.
Look, it's I've been through a couple of these.
Right.
Now, not here at the State Department, of
Right.
course, but I mean, it varies. Each incoming administration has their own inner workings and their own team and organizational approach. And there's no right or wrong way to do it, and there's no right or wrong time period to put teams in place at various agencies. Each transition team has to decide that for themselves. And again, I'd point you to the President-elect's team to speak to their thinking on this. What I will tell you, again, what I said yesterday, is that we are ready to receive them here at the State Department and to provide all the support that they need once they're ready for it. But it's really for them to decide that, and I just don't have the history of,
Okay.
each presidential administration change over the last 10, 12 years. I just don't know.
I just have a quick follow-up. At one point, I mean, considering that tomorrow is the last day of the week, next week is really a very short week, and then we probably roll into December and so on. At what point, if they don't contact you during that period, it becomes disconcerting or, of concern to you in this case?
It's not about concern for us, Saeed. I mean, we're ready to support them in any way that they deem fit. And we've got folks here at the State Department that are teed up and ready to do that. It's really the timing and the timeline, the way it's structured, all that is for the President-elect's team to decide. It's not about concern here. It's about
Right.
it's about their plans and how they want to run the transition efforts. But again, those are their decisions.
But are they aware of how thick your book is that you have there? And
My book?
I mean, your book. I'm talking about. No, I'm serious. I mean, all these issues that you guys deal with daily and so on, and that they require a great deal of briefing.
I can't speak for where their heads are on different issues about foreign policy, Saeed. I'm quite certain that they're mindful of the larger world around them and the scope of the issues that they're going to be grappling with very soon after the inauguration. But I can't speak to their level of expertise on all of. I can't even speak to my level of expertise on all this stuff. All I can tell you is that we're ready, as I said, to receive them and to offer them materials as they need to start to begin and build out their foreign policy agenda.
Can you give us a figure on the
Hang on a second, Leslie.
number of people that will be coming in or replacing?
No idea.
those or-
You'd have to talk to the
Like, is it
President-elect.
300, 400?
I have no
200?
idea. I don't know, Saeed.
What issues do you think are the most are the very first ones that you think that a Trump transition team needs to get a handle on at this department. Some officials are saying that the fight against Daesh is one that you can't wait until the 20th for a transition to happen. That you could, if as soon as they name someone now, that the next day they can come in and start working with the team, because you can't have any pause in that fight.
It's not for me to, it's not for us to lay out an agenda of items.
Well, you can
that-
recommend.
But it's not
I
for us to lay
understand
out an agenda of items for the transition team to focus on. They will have to make decisions about what they want to prioritize in their foreign policy agenda. All I can tell you is that on the foreign policy agenda of the Obama administration, and the one that Secretary Kerry is committed to continuing to pursue for the remainder of time that he's in office, obviously the fight against Daesh is right up there at the top. And I think you know that there was in Berlin over the last couple of days another counter-ISIL coalition meeting. Brett McGurk attended. A good, wide-ranging discussion about our progress in that fight and also some of the challenges that remain. I would say the conflict in Syria certainly is going to continue to dominate the Secretary's time for the next 2 months. Climate change, and I think if you haven't, again, seen the Secretary's very eloquent speech yesterday from Marrakesh, I encourage you to look at that. But obviously, continuing our focus on the Paris Agreement and on climate change will remain front and center. International trade and economic development obviously will continue to be a key focus of the Secretary going forward here over the next couple of months. And then obviously the situation in Ukraine and in Europe will continue to be I think dominant on his agenda. Not to mention, and I left it off and I shouldn't have, is of course Yemen and the conflict in Yemen, and trying to see a peaceful resolution to that conflict, and just as importantly, humanitarian aid getting to so many Yemenis who are in desperate need of it. So there is an awful lot on the Secretary's plate for the next 2 months. Those are the things that he will continue to prioritize. I'm sure I missed a few. But as for what they will focus on and what they will choose to highlight, that's really for them to decide.
I wasn't ready. I was thinking of issues. I mean, and I think that's why everybody's asking about the transition questions, is because you can't have people walking off the job in January 20 and just say, okay, there you go, Mosul and Raqqa.
Well, that's the whole purpose. Frankly, that's the whole purpose for a transition process, is so that one team can hand off to the other context and information to help them make these kinds of decisions. Ultimately, how they approach the issues will be up to them. Ultimately, in what priority they want to put them will be up to them. But that's why we are ready and willing to receive them here and to provide them to answer any questions they have about these issues and our approaches to them and what we've been doing, our successes, and also some of the challenges that we faced. We intend to be, as the Secretary has made clear, we will be fully candid and open with them about the full scope of these issues. But again, ultimately, what they choose to prioritize is up to them. But again, that's the whole reason for a transition process, is so that you've got a couple of months there to take advantage of the experience of an outgoing team, to avail yourself of the information and context to make your own decisions going forward.
Can we stay on Yemen since you mentioned it last? On Yemen?
Go ahead. Yeah, are we still in transition?
Yeah.
Okay.
I understand this is similar to what it is that Saeed asked, but just in order for people to have context over the way this transition is happening compared to past administrations, are you able to share at all when it is that the transition began between the Obama, the handover from the Bush administration to the Obama administration within the State Department, or from the Clinton administration to the Bush administration?
As I understand it, some members of, and this is just from talking to staff members here, as I understand it, some members, a very small number from the Obama team came to state early on within days of the election. But that it took, it's not like, it didn't happen all at once. And so the whole transition team, I think it took a couple of weeks or so before the whole transition team really kind of got up and running here. But they had a small number who came over, again, within days. But from President Clinton to President Bush, again, that's going way back. But again, that was a contested election, so it took much longer for transition teams to get into place because we didn't have a result for so long. So it really depends. There's no right or wrong approach here. It really is up to the president-elect's team to decide how they want to do this and in what manner. They have spoken to this very publicly over the last couple of days about their approach to the transition, and I point you to their comments about their confidence in the process so far. But Abigail, it is their process, and that's important to respect. It is their decisions to make about how they're going to approach the transition. All we can do from our end, as the Secretary again has made crystal clear to everybody here, is we're going to be fully cooperative and helpful, and we're going to be ready. So when they're ready, we want to make sure we are. They've got office spaces here at the State Department that are set up for them. We have experts across the agency that are fully prepared to brief them on whatever they want, and we're going to be as open, as candid, as forthright as we can, because we want to make this as seamless a transition for them as possible. Yeah.
Transition, please.
One more on transition?
Yeah. The transition team had a conference call this morning in which they said that they're releasing the names of the State Department guys tomorrow. They'll be coming here. Have they informed you about it?
I don't have any contact to read out to you today.
And secondly, has Secretary spoken to the President-elect?
I'm sorry?
Has Secretary spoken to President-elect?
No.
No. He's also traveling globally, and when the election was going on, he has said publicly that he has been hearing concerns about some of the rhetorics during the election campaign from the various world leaders. After the elections, is he hearing the same kind of concerns?
I'm not going to speak for.
What's the feedback you're receiving from the world leaders?
I'm not going to speak to the discussions he's had since the election. We've put readouts out on almost all of these discussions. I would refer you to those readouts, and those foreign leaders can speak for themselves. But you're right. Broadly speaking, without going into individual eaches before the election, he was open about the general concerns that he was hearing from foreign leaders about the campaign rhetoric. Since the election, I think I'd have to point you to those leaders that he met with to speak to their views of it. That wouldn't be appropriate for us to do.
Thank you.
Could you update us on the status of the ceasefire in Yemen that was brokered in Muscat, Oman, a couple of days ago?
Yeah. Hang on a second. So what I would tell you is we recognize that the Houthis have publicly committed to the cessation of hostilities, provided that all sides implement the same commitment. We also understand that the Saudi-led coalition has also expressed a willingness to return to a cessation of hostilities. We're working very hard to get all the parties now to agree to this. We have seen reports. I know today is the day that it was supposed to begin. I get that. We've seen reports that there's been some continued fighting. And again, we urge all parties, including the Republic of Yemen government, to quickly and publicly announce their support for the cessation. So we're still working this very, very hard. We want this to be done, as we've said before, under UN auspices, under the special envoy, and through his leadership.
Can you tell us about the content of a letter in the meeting between, I think, Assistant Secretary Tim King, I believe, with the Yemeni President Hadi in Saudi Arabia, Riyadh, I believe? What was the content? Was there some sort of an American apology in that letter?
What I'd say is that as part of our ongoing engagement, senior department officials did meet today with Republic of Yemen government officials to discuss the U.S. position toward reaching a durable settlement to the conflict. Our position, again, towards the conflict remains the same. We want all sides to return to a cessation of hostilities and to accept the UN roadmap as a basis for discussion. So Ambassador Tuller and Deputy Assistant Secretary Tim Lenderking did meet with President Hadi to convey those messages.
So the Yemenis or Yemeni sources claim that the Secretary of State Kerry may have been in a bit of a hurry to conclude a deal, that it was not thought out or conducted. Do you agree with that? Was he in a hurry to conclude some sort of a deal?
I think the Secretary would make no apologies for having a sense of urgency here
of course.
to try to end this conflict. You want to call it in a hurry, fine, you can call it in a hurry.
No, I mean, I'm not
but
saying,
he
they're
certainly,
saying.
no, I know, but obviously he has a sense of urgency here about trying to end this conflict and to doing so peacefully, and I don't, again, he would make no apology for that. Yeah.
Turkish President Erdogan is in Pakistan today, and he publicly suggested in Pakistan that the West was behind ISIS in order to hurt Muslims. Quote, "It is certain that Western countries are standing by Daesh. Now Iraq, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and many others are suffering from terrorism and separatist terrorism." What's your comment on that? Do you think it's a reasonable statement?
No, I do not.
Could you?
Do you have another question?
Well, I do have, actually, I do have another question, but you think it's a completely unreasonable statement? And he's...
Any such notion, I think, is just it doesn't really merit a response. I mean, the United States in particular has been at the leading edge here of countering terrorism around the world, and there's a coalition now of some 67 entities, mostly countries, that are aligned against Daesh. As I said, there was just a meeting in Berlin, a counter-ISIL coalition meeting, that went through an enormous amount of progress that we're making against this group. I think the record speaks for itself.
And Turkey's a member of that coalition.
They
too,
are
isn't
indeed.
it? Okay. My other question on Turkey. At yesterday's briefing at the Pentagon, the spokesman for Operation Inherent Resolve pointed to disputes between the U.S. and Turkey over the Turkish-backed offensive on al-Bab in Syria. The U.S. had been supporting that offensive by the Turkey's Arab allies with airstrikes. Now it's not, and some other things. And the spokesman said that these differences between the U.S. and Turkey were being dealt with in diplomatic channels. He wouldn't speak to them. So could you help us understand what those differences are and what progress, if any, has been made on resolving them?
Well, I would point you to the spokesman for Inherent Resolve to go into more detail here about what he's referring to. What I would just say is what we said before. You know, we continue to want the activity, and particularly in that part of Syria, to be coordinated, and that we've said that uncoordinated military activity hasn't been, we don't deem it to be constructive and helpful to the overall effort against Daesh. So I have nothing more to add to that.
Well,
but are we having constant communication with Turkish officials about the campaign in Syria? Absolutely we are.
He wouldn't speak about this. When people ask, he wouldn't speak. He says diplomatic channels, which is why I've asked you. Well, if one can guess at it, is the Turkish offensive on al-Bab causing problems for the campaign to isolate Raqqa?
Well, again, I'm not going to talk about operational matters. I think you know that I won't do that. That is a better question posed to my colleagues at the Pentagon. What we have said here is that we continue to want coalition efforts to be aligned and arrayed against Daesh. That is the common threat. That's the common enemy. That's the purpose the coalition exists. And as I said, we just had a very useful set of discussions in Berlin about the progress we're making. Doesn't mean that there aren't challenges to it. And one of the challenges we've talked about is the potential for uncoordinated military activity to not necessarily be helpful to the overall effort. Okay? Yeah.
Will you take my questions today, despite my being a reporter with RT?
I took your questions yesterday. I've taken them before. I have every intention of taking them today. If I hadn't thought that I would take your questions, I wouldn't have called on you when you raised your hand.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Your colleague, a State Department official, emailed me the list of hospitals, which you didn't have at the briefing yesterday. The list included 3 hospitals struck in rural western Aleppo and 2 in the Idlib province within the past few days. For your information, my colleagues at RT in Moscow did ask Russian officials about the hospitals on that list.
Good.
The information comes from the World Health Organization, which indeed says 5 hospitals in Syria in those locations were attacked. The WHO told us that it was not their job to assign blame. But since the accusations are so serious, they must be looked into, I think. With that, I want to ask a few questions. Did you, and I mean the State Department, draw the conclusion that Russia hit the hospitals based on their location, knowing that Russia was carrying out operations in Idlib in the past few days?
What I said yesterday
location?
was these hospitals, we had information that these hospitals were hit from credible aid agencies. You mentioned WHO. We know it wasn't coalition aircraft, so it either had to be Syrian or Russian aircraft. I don't know and wouldn't get into, as I never have from this podium, a specific discussion of each and every airstrike and who and how it was conducted. That's not for me to say.
So, is that just to make it clear? Are you or are you not accusing both Russian and Syrian militaries of hitting the hospitals?
What I'm saying is that there have been credible accounts of hospitals that were hit. Hospitals. Let's not forget that as you and I go in this little back and forth. Hospitals. Medical care facilities. These are credible accounts of them being hit. We know that they weren't hit by coalition aircraft. So that leaves only, well, wait a second, that leaves only two other potential players here. And that's either the Syrian regime or their Russian backers, are the only other ones that are flying tactical aircraft over Aleppo and have conducted airstrikes. Now, if you're asking me to tell you what kind of aircraft on each hospital and how many bombs, I don't have that information.
And
all I was doing yesterday was saying that we've seen these credible allegations and claims, and they are extremely worrisome.
Do you distinguish between, well, obviously you said you don't know which Air Force hit which hospitals, but do you distinguish between the two, or do you accuse them both together of that?
I wasn't, Diane, I wasn't making accusations. I was simply expressing concern that we had seen from credible aid agencies, and I think the World Health Organization is credible, about continued Syrian and Russian-backed airstrikes in and around Aleppo, where innocent people are being killed, people that are going to hospital to get better, and they're being killed. And let's not forget that. This isn't about accusations, and I'm not making accusations. I was yesterday expressing serious concern that we still have, because we saw another report today from Doctors Without Borders that another 2 hospitals were struck today. You can go look at Doctors Without Borders on their website and see that. Okay? Yeah.
Why is it so difficult to determine who struck what? I mean, in this kind of environment, we know the combatants, as you said. We know who's carrying out airstrikes and so on. So why is it so difficult to determine that this was hit at this particular time and so on? I mean, you have definitely all kinds
visibility. We don't have perfect visibility and say, look, I don't want to get into a military discussion here.
Okay.
Again, I think this is a better question to put to my colleagues across the river. But we don't have perfect visibility on the tactical situation in and around Aleppo, or even in many areas of Syria. The fight, the military effort in Syria is dedicated to Daesh and to the fight against that terrorist group. And on those issues, on those strikes, on those operations, our colleagues in the military have been very candid and forthcoming with detail, but we don't have perfect visibility.
Because apparently, I mean, rebels or opposition sources and so on, they make all kinds of claims. They claim that there is no ISIS, let's say, in eastern Aleppo. There are no militant groups and so on. They make these. How do you determine what is credible and what is not when you don't have your own assets?
We do the best we can, knitting together a fabric of information sources that we have. Some of it can come from intelligence sources. Right. Some of it comes from press reporting. Some of it comes from credible aid agencies and organizations. Some of it comes from the opposition groups that we're in daily communication with. I mean, there's a variety of sources that allow you to put together the best picture possible, but it's not perfect. And I've never said that it's perfect, our information is.
And my last one on this, was there any contact between the Secretary of State and the Russian Foreign Minister?
As I said at the outset, they're expected to meet in Lima. I don't think that meeting has happened yet. As I understand it, it's happening later this afternoon, and I'm sure that Mark will put out a readout when it's over.
You think there will be some sort of resurrection of the September 9th agreement?
The September 9th agreement
I mean, the ceasefire agreement, that's gone.
No, I wouldn't say that it's
completely
gone. I mean, it's still what we're trying to achieve there, Saeed. But obviously, it hasn't met with success, so we wouldn't be having this particular exchange. But the multilateral discussions in Geneva continue. I think the Secretary's hope, and frankly, his expectation is that we'll be able to get there. But we'll see.
So, John, your counterpart at the Russian Foreign Ministry said that Foreign Minister Lavrov would be raising with Secretary Kerry the incident, shall we say, the exchange that happened yesterday over Syria and the hospital strikes from this room. Have you been in contact with them about this? Do you know anything about it?
Have I been in contact with who about this?
With either the Secretary or with have any Russian diplomats been in touch?
I'm not aware that there's been any contact from the Russian side on this. We've seen tweets and press reporting that this is going to be raised in the meeting, and I know that Mark's aware of that, but the meeting hasn't happened yet, so we'll see.
Can I?
Yeah, back there.
Oh. Thank you, sir. Since the election of Mr. Trump as the next president of the United States of America, Sir, the immigrants of these countries have a lot of concerns, and as you know that there are more than 400 racism-related incidents all over the country, and we're witnessing more on the social media and on the websites. While Mr. Trump also announced to suspend the Syrian refugee program. So does this administration, the Obama administration, have some concerns if such thing happening here?
Balos, what program?
So Syrian refugee program? Yes.
The refugee program.
Yeah, Syrian refugees program. He announced
Look,
that he's going to suspend that program.
The new administration, they will make whatever foreign policy decisions, whatever national security decisions they believe are appropriate, and that is for them to speak to. And I don't know how they're going to approach that or any other foreign policy challenge that will be facing them on the 20th of January. And it's not our place here at the State Department to speak for them or to characterize whatever decisions they're going to make, whether it's with taking in refugees or the conflict in Syria or climate change. That's for them to speak to. What we're going to do is two things. We're going to stay prepared and ready for when their team gets here to provide them all the information and context that they require to be informed as they make those decisions. And number two, for the 60 some odd days that the administration has left in office, we're going to continue to pursue the foreign policy agenda and priorities and objectives that we have before us, that President Obama has set in place, and that's what the Secretary is going to be focused on for the next couple of months.
So I have one more on Pakistan. So the tensions at the Pak and India borders are on rise. Like 2 days ago, more than 10 Pakistani soldiers were killed at the border, while same number of Indian soldiers were also killed. So you always urge both the countries to restart the dialogue process and to solve their problems with the dialogue. But what kind of diplomatic efforts are going on from U.S. side to calm down the situation? That both the countries have the nuclear assets and nuclear bombs, and it's a very tense situation there.
We remain in close communication with our counterparts in both countries, and again, as we've said before, urge them both to work bilaterally to try to reduce tensions. Okay, thank you. APEC?
Yes. I just want to make sure I understand. Did you say at the beginning that the Secretary Kerry is planning to meet with the special envoy from Taiwan during the
I think that's
meeting?
what I said in there, yeah. The Taiwanese APEC Special Envoy, James Song.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have more details on that? When is the meeting?
I don't know. As I said, I gave you a list of the meetings that he has today. Some of them have happened. Some of them are happening as we speak. And again, I think you'll hear more from Mark, who's out there with the Secretary. He'll provide readouts of these meetings as they happen. The only one that I know we've read out so far is the meeting with Foreign Minister Kishida.
What does the United States want to get out from the meeting? What should we set?
I'm not going to get ahead of it since I don't even know if it's happened, Nike. So why don't we just wait for the readout, and I'm sure Mark will provide you the context on the back end of the meeting. Okay.
Could you at least give us some sense of the status of the U.S.-Taiwan relations?
There's been no change to our relations with Taiwan, and there's been no change to our One China policy. I think you know that. Yeah.
So as I promised Mark when he was up on the podium last week.
I think I know where this is going.
Yeah. I'm going to return to my line of questioning about the nuclear agreement and the IAEA finding, which is now fully public, even though it was fully public last week.
Fully public by being leaked, you mean?
Well, it was out there.
Right. It was out there.
So it's out there now for real,
Yes,
not a leaked copy.
That's right.
It finds that Iran, for the second time, was not in compliance / violated the nuclear deal by overproducing heavy water. Why? Mark last week was reluctant to call this a violation. In fact, not reluctant, he refused to say that it was a violation. And I'm wondering if that's, now that the report is public, is the administration willing to accept that this was a violation of the nuclear deal?
We certainly agree with the IAEA that they slightly exceeded the 130 metric ton heavy water stockpile limit by something of 1/10 of a metric ton. And as I think Mark said, we certainly made clear to Iran that it should take quick action to resolve this issue without delay in keeping with its JCPOA commitments. It's our understanding that they're working to do just that.
Is it a violation or is it not a violation?
Look, I think, again, we agree with the IAEA that they did exceed by a small amount the heavy water stockpile that the deal requires them to have. And we have made it clear to Iran that we want to see this resolved quickly. Iran has taken steps to do just that. And the other thing I'd say is, and I know you won't fully appreciate this, but
Well, you might be surprised.
this is this in excess stockpile. I mean, one of the reasons we were able to know about it was because of the regimen that's been put in place by the deal. When we were having the debate on Capitol Hill about the deal, and we talked, and the Secretary talked about this, that we're going to know, and so we know, and the concerns have been expressed to Iran, and they're dealing with it.
Yeah, but everyone in the administration, even the president, said the other day that Iran has been in compliance with the JCPOA since it was implemented, and the IAEA has found now twice where it wasn't in compliance. Why is that? How is that? How are those not violations?
Again, I'm not going to parse words here.
I mean, it's just calling it what it is.
They,
right?
Well, I would also say that in removing this extra, and it is a small amount,
Right.
that the removal itself is in keeping with their commitments under the JCPOA to, if they exceed it, they've got to get rid of it, and so that's what they're doing.
And so what do? They ship it out and then they sell it, right?
That's one way to do it. I mean, to find.
So they're
to
actually
find,
making
to
money
find,
off of violating
to
the
find
agreement.
places to sell it or to transport it. So I have to.
Isn't that an incentive? Isn't that an incentive for them to violate the heavy water, at least the heavy water element of the
Actually,
agreement?
I mean, our understanding is that that's a difficult task,
What?
and to find
sell it?
buyers for that. It's not.
Well, you guys
it's not
bought a
easily
whole
done.
bunch of it.
It's
not
not
that long
easily
ago.
done. It's not easily done. So look,
And
I don't want to. I'm not trying to justify them being in excess. I don't make any excuses for that, Matt. We're concerned about this, and we've expressed that concern, and we expect them to stay inside the limit that the JCPOA requires of them. So I'm not making light of this at all.
Go ahead.
But this is an example of how the system is supposed to work. When they exceed, when they don't meet each of the commitments, the IAEA will know and will call them on it.
Right,
And
but-
they are now resolving.
But in fact you're not calling them on it because you're not saying they violated it when they did, and
IAEA
the
said
way
they
it's.
slightly exceeded it. We agree with that
But
assessment.
but I don't understand why you can't call that what it is, which is a violation of the agreement.
I think we've been clear about our expectations. for that.
And how, and, all right, so let's leave that aside then. Going back to this, hasn't this agreement been set up in a way that if, instead of being punished for non-compliance or a violation, Iran is actually being rewarded for it because they're going to make money off of it?
No, as I said, look, I'm not an expert on the heavy water marketplace, as I understand that's
Well,
not an easy thing to sell, and so I don't see that as an incentive to Iran in any way. I just don't.
So is the United States no longer in the business of buying
I'm not,
heavy
I
water
can't speak
from
to
Iran?
I can't speak to future decisions. I don't know.
But at the time, people said that it was a one-off. The last time it happened, it was
Right.
explained to
I
us as a
know of
one-off deal.
I know of no decisions pending for us to
Right.
purchase more.
But someone is going to buy it, right? Or you don't know that?
I don't
It's just
know
going to
that.
sit in.
I don't know. You'd have
Wherever.
to talk to Iranian officials about what they're going to do with the excess. Saeed.
A couple of questions on the Palestinian-Israeli
Sure.
issue. It's the same thing, we talked about it before, but it seems that yesterday, the bill to legalize, according to Reuters, the bill to legalize the settler outpost advanced in the Israeli legislature. I wonder if you have any comment on that. I know You commented yesterday and the day before, but it
And
seems
so
to
you-
be, and the day before. But
Yeah.
this is the thing. It seems to be advancing. I mean, that is not being held back. So
Yeah, look, Said, we obviously are deeply concerned by the advancement of this legislation that would allow for the legalization of illegal Israeli outposts that are located on private Palestinian land. Israel's own Attorney General has reportedly expressed serious concerns about the constitutionality of this proposed legislation. If this law were enacted, we believe it could pave the way for the legalization of dozens of outposts that are illegal under Israel's domestic law deep in the West Bank. And it would represent an unprecedented and troubling step that is inconsistent with prior Israeli legal opinion and break longstanding Israeli policy of not building on private Palestinian property.
Also-
On that answer, can I just make, that's exactly the same answer that Elizabeth, it hasn't been changed since the initial vote over the weekend, has it?
No, our position on this
No,
proposed
I
legislation
know that, but
hasn't
you
changed,
have not,
except that it's
it
now
hasn't been,
advanced and
I know that, but your language hasn't been updated to reflect the new vote.
I did not read with great specificity Elizabeth's transcript, as I understand
not?
it. No, I didn't.
Really?
I didn't.
Boy.
I trust her, but I don't know that the language has changed.
Was it? It's exactly the same.
She says it's the same.
All right, okay,
let me
thank you.
just follow up very quickly. Also, the Supreme Court turned down a village request, to show documents that they do own the land and so on. I'm saying, they took 100 dunams, which is like, 25, 30 acres of land, agricultural land, from a village near Clopelia. The point is, with the peace process and negotiations are in a coma, and there is no restraint. The Israelis are not restrained. Would you consider, like, the major power in the world, maybe being the arbiter to see what is the legality of this thing? I mean, to look into it yourself. Is that something that can be done? Is that something that can be assumed by the United States?
I think we've been exceedingly clear about our view on settlements, on demolitions in the West Bank, and I just don't have anything more to add. I mean, we have been very clear, and we continue to have discussions with Israeli leaders about that.
Should there be, in the absence of direct negotiations or something that you, under your guidance, that you have shepherded in the past, should there be anything that ought to be done at the level of the United Nations to look into these matters, the land confiscation,
I think
the settlements, and so on? We're not talking about a two-state solution. We're not talking about recognizing Palestine. We're talking about something that is actually tangible and physical, which is the land, the settlement.
I
Should
know.
there be something?
I'm very aware that it's
Right.
a tangible issue, and again, we continue to talk to all sides here, to take the kind of steps to ratchet down the tensions, to get us closer to a two-state solution. I'm not going to get ahead of action inside the UN one way or the other, but we have been exceedingly clear about our position on settlements, and that hasn't changed. Okay, thanks everybody.